All right, my friends, welcome back to the Reisinger build. Man, we've got a ton going on the job site today, but on this episode specifically, we're gonna talk about roofing. Now, this whole series, you know, has been sponsored by our friends at Builders First Source, but Atlas, a shingle manufacturer and also the manufacturer of the insulation we use on the outside and on the roof deck, is the specific sponsor on this episode. If you watched our previous episode, you watched how we did an over roof detail. We monopoly framed this house. We put two 2-inch layers of Atlas insulation on. We did a 2x4 on the flat running from the eave all the way up to the roof for a ventilation channel. And then we put another layer of zip system roof sheathing on so that we're where we are today. Now, we did a full peel and stick underlayment previously, so the guys that started today are actually running right into the shingle process. Now, we put our metal drip edge on the roof first, but man, the guys are making crazy progress. It's only like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I feel like, geez, these guys are gonna be done by right after lunch or something. It's going really, really quick. But on this episode, we're gonna jump into all the details, what we need to know about the shingles, some details for durability. I'm gonna give you a couple design tips that I think really make a difference too. We're gonna talk about the skylights that we used and how we're flashing those. A lot of really good information, whether you're building this specific house. By the way, the plans are available at bldrplans.com, or building any house with a roof like this. We've got some great details for you. With that being said, today's specific episode sponsored by Atlas. Let's get going.
A Build Original series in partnership with Builders First Source. The Reisinger Build.
All right, y'all, let's jump right in. I've got a lot to talk about with shingles and specs. But before I do that, let's catch you up to speed on where we got to today. You know, if you look at the drone shot on this house, we've got a full peel and stick underlayment and they're starting to put the shingles down. But I want to rewind time and just kind of review where we're at. So this house has an over roof detail, and I would highly recommend you go back and check out those full videos. But quickly, just real quick, here's how we got there. We monopoly framed the house, meaning my walls and my roof actually touch each other, so I could tape that with a piece of zip tape. We are fully airtight and fully waterproof at the monopoly framing. And then we added 2 inches of Atlas Polyiso on top of the roof deck. So I'm around R22 on top of the roof deck. And then we added a 2x4 on the flat on top of that I screwed all the way down through with a really long Simpson screw into the trusses. So now when I put that final layer that they're actually walking on of zip system sheathing, this is really an over roof. And I'm gonna be vented between that zip system sheathing roof and the top of the insulation with that 1.5 inch airspace. So you're gonna notice later in the day when the guys start putting the vented ridge cap on from Atlas, that we're gonna cut out that peel and stick waterproof underlayment that we've got from the, basically from the eave all the way to the ridge. They're gonna cut that out of the top and leave a 2-inch vent space. I've got vented hardy soffit. I'll have a vented Atlas cap on the top, and now I'll have lots of airflow basically from the eave all the way to the ridge, so that will be a fully ventilated space. Now here's the reason though that we did a full peel and stick. There's really 2 reasons. Number one, if we were to have a crazy wind event and these shingles blew off, these are a highly rated shingle. I think they're up to 130 miles an hour. But if something were to happen, it's certainly possible to go higher than that in the scheme of things. Now I've got a full peel and stick underlayment under there so that I'm not gonna get really any water below that. This would be even more important if I didn't have an over roof detail. That over roof detail that I've got gives even more forgiveness for the house, because at my first layer, at my monopoly framing, I'm fully taped under there. So any water that were to get through, it's gonna have a really hard time finding its way into the house. But for any house, that full peel and stick underlayment is a great way to go. That's gonna be part of the Fortified program if you're familiar with that. I've made lots of videos, but having a sealed roof deck makes a big difference. Now, a couple things I do want to mention from a design side before we get into the specs. You'll notice this is a pretty low pitched roof right here. If I remember correctly, this is a 512 pitch roof. There's this kind of yin and yang that I'm going for, where I want some height of roof so that I've got some attic space for my mechanicals. Remember, I'm slab on grade here, so all of my HVAC systems are in the roof. I don't want too low of a pitch, so I'm tight in the attic, but I also don't want too high of a pitch to make it unsafe to walk on the roof, especially for future access. You know, if I or my homeowner ever need to get on that roof, I want to make it not so scary. Let's put it that way. So there's this sweet spot for me between like 512 and 712 that I really like. If I can make a house, you know, and I'm part of the design influence, 5 to 7 over 12 is really what I like to see out there. So this one being right in there, we're right in the sweet spot. You can see the roofers are tied off, but in general, this is a very walkable roof. It doesn't feel scary to get up there. So that's my preference. Anything above 712 feels kind of scary for me. All right, next up, let's talk penetrations on the roof. I really tried to limit as much as possible anything coming through those shingles. I really feel like my shingles are good to go for many decades, but it's those penetrations that I do worry about. So the roofer slid a roof jack on the pipe that's sticking out that's gonna be my masthead for my electrical on the back of the house. And he also slid one on the back of the house. If you look at the drone, you'll see that I've got just one vent stack. But that's something that I really like to do whenever possible. I talk to the plumbers at the beginning of the job and say, hey, how could we collect all the venting into one bigger stack? I think this is a 3 or maybe a 4-inch roof stack on the back of the house, not in the front of the house. So when you look in the front, there's really no penetrations on the front of the house. Everything's on the back. Now, speaking of penetrations, the obvious one when you look at the drone shot though is these beautiful skylights. I actually have 3 skylights in this house. And I got to tell you, over the years, I've kind of gone back and forth on skylights in terms of they're a future leak potential, but they're also amazing for inside lights. I've kind of settled on the fact that, okay, we do need skylights. I like to put skylights in, but I really want to do them in the least possible way when it comes to worry for the future. So in this case, we did curb mounted skylights. Now that I say that, actually, I'm seeing my guys are pulling up with the skylights on this job. Let me actually cut to showing you what we're using on this job. This is kind of cool. Mark and John from my team just showed up. Let me show you what we got on these boxes. We're putting in 3 skylights on this job. 2 smaller skylights. These are Facro FXC is the actual model number. I really like curb mounted skylights. I'm a big fan of curb mounts because a curb mount means that we've raised the skylight up off the roof deck. Deck mounted skylights are usually lower and they kind of remind me of you know, a window, right? Where we've got like a flashing and nailing flange that gets mounted real low. A curb mount, on the other hand, means that we've added some 2x4s and usually built up a curb that's around 6 inches tall, so like a triple stack of 2x up over the roof deck. And then what's cool about these, a lot of manufacturers do this too, but they've got a specific flashing kit that goes with it. So these smaller skylights include this size, which is the smaller, and they're specifically made for that skylight I just showed you. So basically this skylight here has this flashing kit. It's actually kind of cool. They show you what it includes. You know, you're gonna work from the bottom up, shingle style, just like we always do with a house, right? So we've got this bottom, we've got all these step flashings, and then we've got this head flashing that's gonna direct that water away from the skylight. But one of the big advantages of curb mounts, besides the extra measure of waterproofing, which I really like, is also that they can be removed and replaced if necessary. You know, we do have massive hail here in the South. So if something happens a decade from now and we get some massive hail, something happens and these break and I want to replace them, it's relatively easy for me to do. And frankly, I don't need to mess with that curb flashing kit when it's up above. It's going to be screwed in from the sides, pop that skylight out and put a new one in. But the really fun part of the skylight package is this right here. This big boy, I don't even remember the dimensions. I mean, that looks to me like it's 4 foot by 6 foot or maybe something like that. We specifically designed the truss package with BFS to accommodate this giant skylight. And actually, this is a custom unit. These are a little bit more off the catalog, off the shelf, so to speak. That's why you'll see all the labeling here has everything on it. This big boy doesn't have any labeling because that's a custom from Facro. Another cool thing about Facro, we didn't do it on this job, but they do make some triple glazed skylights as well. So consider that if you're in a climate where that really makes sense. We're on the side of the house that we're gonna get a little less sun. We're kind of north and east facing with this skylight, but super excited to see how much light this big boy brings into the center of the house. So let's get back to the roofing. All right, y'all, let me introduce you to Mundo from Kid Roofing. Mundo, I gotta tell a quick story for these guys. 20 years ago when I met you, I was just a kid. I just started the company. And I made a 3-bid mistake on this project where the client during the recession said, "Matt, you gotta get 3 bids and everything." And it was my first flat roof job. It had scuppers everywhere. I chose the lowest bidder. Turns out that was that roofer's first flat roof job too, which I didn't know at the time. He also didn't have insurance. He had given me a fake certificate and whited out the like dates on it. And that house leaked like a sieve. Basically every scupper on this stucco house leaked. And so Mundo and I were trying to figure out what the problem is. And I have this funny picture of you looking at this window, and I think in the background I'm saying, "It's got a head flashing. I can't imagine the window's leaking." And right above your head is this scupper. And right after that picture, right after I snapped that photo, I think you're like, "Matt, it's the scupper, I'm telling you, it's not the window. Your head flashing's fine." And sure enough, we ripped that stucco off and that scupper was leaking like a sieve. That was like a 1-year-old house, and the OSB was like mulch. You know, it was just rotted. From that point on, I've used nothing but Kid Roofing. These guys are amazing, and Mundo has been a true partner in my business, to me and lots of my custom builder friends. So thank you for your incredible career that you've had helping builders like me stay out of trouble.
That's why I'm here.
Let's give these guys some advice. You know, we've done all kinds of roofs. We've done clay, done a lot of metal. We haven't done a lot of asphalt shingles, but this job, you know, we wanted to do it on a budget, do it a little at lower cost. You know, I think of this roof as probably being at least half, if not maybe a third of the cost of our typical metal roofs that we do. So this was definitely more of a budget compared to some of our other projects. But there's some things that we did on this job, Mundo, that I think really elevate it from a standard shingle job. So first off, let's talk product. What's the shingle that we use on this job?
It's an Atlas Pinnacle. They're one of their dimensional shingles, and I think the most important thing about it is it's an impact resistant shingle.
So what does that mean, impact resistant?
It's made with asphalts that are more resistant to hail damage, which is the big killer of roofs, even in our area. And I think probably the most important thing is you can get a discount on your homeowner's insurance policy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess depends by the carrier on what that percentage is. But it's something that more and more of them are asking for, because with the insurance industry and the way they are, they're willing to pay fewer claims, and this helps them, it helps you. This way you can get some hail on it and not have to worry about putting out to get a new roof on
replacing that roof out just because you got a hailstorm.
Yeah, because you're still at your deductible and anything else. So,
yeah, that makes sense. What kind of warranty do they give on that? Do you know what that looks like?
On this one, and especially because you used all of the manufacturer's components, his underlayment, his starter shingle, his ridge vent. Because of all this,
all Atlas products.
Yeah, they're going to give you, I believe it's a 15-year non-prorated material and labor warranty.
And tear off, I think, too,
yeah,
right?
So that's included in it. Most of them, you know, you get to a certain point and you're not going to get that.
That's a big deal.
So I think it's 15 year on it, yeah.
And that's also transferable to the second owner when we looked at that warranty stuff.
As long as this warranty is registered by this homeowner and it's on record, then they can transfer, they go to sell the house.
That's a really big deal.
Yeah, it is.
A couple of the details I want to talk about from a durability standpoint that Mundo does without even thinking about it, that I don't know that everyone thinks about it. Let's talk about penetrations of the roof. First off, we've got, I think, 3 penetrations. I've got 2 plumbing vents. By the way, I do want to give kudos to my plumbers. They put them on the back side of the roof so you don't see it. There's nothing that you'd see at all in the front. But I got a 3-inch stack on the second story. and it looks like maybe a 2-inch stack on the back of the garage.
Right.
Talk to me about the jacks that we use to protect those.
We used a lead pipe flashing, so it's an integral. It's a lead base with basically the sleeve is soldered to the base, and they're long enough that when the flashing's installed, you carry it over and you fold it down into the pipe, because that's going to be as long as everything is done well when it's roofed and set on the shingles, that's not an issue. But because that flashing's a little bigger than a pipe, you can get a certain amount of rainwater down in there.
Sure.
Well, these are folded over into it, and that eliminates that issue right there.
And lead's not going to break down in the sun.
No.
That lead, if you let it out in the yard for 100 years, is still going to look the same.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to break down.
And especially nowadays, everything all that needs to be painted anyway. It's getting painted. They want the PVC painted, but generally these flashings also get painted. So that's going to help it.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to last a long time.
Yeah.
Those are quite a bit more expensive though, so you need to specify those.
Sure.
Talk to your roofer ahead of time. That's not your least cost option. It's got to be 4 or 5, maybe 10 times more expensive.
Yeah, I'm
even.
not sure. Well, I'm not sure what the other metal-based neoprene, washer ones are.
Yeah.
Generally, in the day, the plumber used to supply those, and so they would bring out the metal base with the neoprene.
Right.
You'd have to ask for lead, and then they'd say, well, you need to supply them because of the price difference.
Sure. Yeah, they're a lot more expensive.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Now we do have one neoprene gasket though. I've got a electrical masthead coming out on the back of the house. It's kind of coming from. We're mounted the electrical meter on the back of the house. It goes straight up through the soffit. And that one we couldn't have used lead, right?
No, because if you would have had a hose clamp or something. You'd have to get some kind of clamp action on it. Well, the electrical guys supply these, which is always a plus, but they know to put it on that before they cap it to get all their lines into it. And it's that metal base, so that's durable. And then the neoprene where it fits tight to the, and since there's not going to be there might be a little movement, but very little, that neoprene will hold out.
Yeah, now do remember though, in 30 years, 25 years, 40 years, at some point that will leak. That neoprene's gonna break at some point.
Right.
So there might be you might wanna double check on a regular basis. You might need some caulking on there. You could use some through the roof by Sashco on that to caulk that and double check it. But when it needs to be replaced someday, do you have to take the electrical down, or what could we do to replace that?
Now they make a boot. They call it a zipper boot, and basically it's a flashing that opens at the front and it has clips on it. So it opens up and you wrap it around and clip it, and it seals tight.
Okay,
And
so there is a replacement.
There is a replacement for it.
Gotcha.
And especially because you have a durable shingle roof, there isn't going to be as much maintenance involved, but you have trees around, so you may need to get up occasionally, get some leaves off of it, or make sure nothing's rubbing on it. And that's the time to look at your flashings and make sure everything is good, that neoprene is still sound, and that there's nothing happening with your other flashings.
Yeah, an annual roof inspection on a roof that's 10 years old is really smart. And you mentioned
part of the maintenance.
It's part of the maintenance. You got to get up there and you got to blow those leaves off. If you got valleys that leaves are collecting, that's an absolute leak potential. You got to get those off.
Behind those skylights, leaves will pile up.
That's a great point. Let's talk skylights while we're at it. We bought the kit from Facro. But I think they didn't quite work, did they?
No,
they were a little taller.
They're a little short for what we like,
for
what we normally like. I'm sure they
I built my curve a little too high for the kit.
Well, no, the kit was made a little too small for your curve.
There you go, all right.
Yeah, no, your curve
so what did we do instead for curb flashing?
We had a 2x6 curb, so that's getting us 5.5 inches up off of the roof, which we really like. It gets you, in a heavy rain, water's going to hit that flashing and want to roll up, but we're 5.5 inches up, and our flashing is that high, and it expands to the sides, and the corners are soldered.
Yeah.
So it's good and tight. I prefer those.
So that's a galvanized metal?
It is.
Okay, gotcha. So we use the galvanized metal, and if you look at that too, it looks like you bent it on those two bottom corners.
Yeah, that's made
at
the shop. Yeah, it's folded around and then soldered. The same with the top flashing. It's folded around and soldered.
I like that.
And then, of course, it needs a good coat of paint on it to maintain it, even if it is galvanized.
That's right.
You get those leaves again that stays moist, it promotes rust. So let's get it painted, let's keep it clean.
Yeah, really smart. Let's talk schedule a little bit here, because I think a lot of builders, especially younger builders, make the mistake of having the roofer come, install those shingles, put their sidewall flashings on, walk away, and the trades haven't gone through the house. The stucco guy is going to be working on the roof. The siding guys are working on the roof. What's the problem with doing that?
Well, we'll start with your cladding, your siding, or your masonry, or your stucco. You got the shingles on. First, I think it's just not fair to the other trades, especially here. Okay, I have this charcoal colored roof up here. You get up here and work on this. Don't damage it and don't stain it.
Right.
You're asking a little much there.
Yeah.
And then I've had guys, oh, I've got a good painter. I don't care how good he is. Especially, your overhang, even when you're getting all your cornice work painted, they're going to want to spray it for ease. And if you have the shingles on, they're getting damaged.
That's right.
Damaged or stained.
Yep.
So that's just not right. As far as penetrations, your plumbing, your skylight curbs, anything you're stabbing through the roof, you want to have that up first.
Yeah.
So they can all be, we can come back after the fact and put on a pipe flashing, but now we're disturbing brand new work, and you have nail holes, you're having to caulk those, put a nail in a new place. And so, we just want to avoid that.
Yeah. Mundo, speaking of flashings, let's talk schedule of how we did the roof, because my guys taped the roof deck and then taped between the roof deck and the side walls on this portion where I've got roof and then second story above. Talk to me about when you guys take over and what you did after that.
Then generally we come and get our underlayment in there. Our underlayment will turn up the wall, even just a couple of inches, before we put on our sidewall or head wall flashing. Those go on top of that underlayment. They turn up the up the sheathing, and then we tape those off.
Yeah.
So that if any moisture gets behind your siding, stucco, whatever it is, it comes down, it hits that tape, and it's directed onto our flashing and brought off of the roof.
And then I made sure all my trades were done, and then I sided it, and then I painted, and then I got your crew in to do shingles.
Right.
So there should be really no walking on the roof at this point forward.
For your painter to get up there and paint those flashings.
Yeah, maybe some touch-up flashing, and that's it.
That's
Other than that, the whole house has been painted ahead of time.
Right. Got your penetration.
Now, you mentioned it briefly, but we did a full peel and stick underlayment from Atlas on this job. Right. I don't have a ton of valley on this house. There's just a small amount of valley on the backside. What's the big benefit of doing that full peel and stick in your mind?
Well, just for the whole roof, just you get any water under there, it's carrying it off. Even with a good 30-pound felt, it'll seal around the fastener a certain extent. Yeah. But at some point, it's gonna get through. The peel and stick is just everything, and especially in these cases nowadays, it's also an air barrier.
Yeah, that's right.
And you got this vapor barrier up there, so no,
it's a great detail,
especially on a shallow pitch roof. You're gonna want it.
That's right. I think this is a 412 or is this a 512?
I think it might be 5.
Yeah, I think it's a 512. I was telling these guys earlier in the episode, I like a 5 to 7. Yes, much below a 5, you're worried about not enough water and gravity moving off the roof. Much above 7, it gets scary to walk on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a cost issue. The way I see it, the steeper the roof is, the more material you're going to need to frame that roof. I'm sure your carpenter's going to charge you more for working something steep. I'm charging you more.
That's right. You charge it higher on based steep. On pitch. So if it was a 6 versus an 8 versus a 10 or 12, you're going to charge more for this.
Because I'm paying my guys more to get up there. Because you're on a roof like this. You're standing there. You're tied off. You have your nail gun. Anything you can set it down, and it's sitting there. The steeper you get,
it's sliding off.
You're chasing. So you're more and more of your effort is spent staying on the roof than it is installing.
That's right.
So it just costs more.
That's right.
It's not like we have to get the snow off of the roof. Well, maybe someday, but
maybe someday.
We're getting there. But I think that mid-range.
I agree. I like that a lot. Let's talk about another really vulnerable area in the house that I've seen done wrong on a lot of remodels. It's right above our heads right here, where this roof dies into this sidewall. And by the way, I've got a window right there, which makes it twice as vulnerable.
Oh, certainly.
There's a piece of flashing sticking out that Mundo's crew put in there that we commonly refer to as a kickout flashing. Talk to me about that flashing over there.
Well, our standard sidewall flashing, our turnback comes down to the edge, and we need to get it out from behind your siding since it's just a 90. So these kickout flashings, we take a piece and cut it and fold it and solder it so that it kicks out. It's what we see there. So it takes, we're sure we're getting that water out from behind there. In the day we'd kind of bend it and get it out there to get it behind it, and that would work too, but these are more just, we're sure now.
More robust.
Yeah, we make them at the shop. They're all soldered. They're cut at just the right angle, and then your framers cut around them.
By the way, there's a manufacturer, we didn't use this on this job, but they sent me a couple samples. I really like these guys. I met them at the JLC live show a couple years ago. This is called the Jade Out Kickout Flash by American Flashings. You order them in a right hand or a left hand, it actually says on there, LH and RH. You get them in a bunch of different colors. They're made from a high-grade PVC, it looks like. Yeah. And we've got a nice big kick out. It's got a spot to drop your siding, whether it's vinyl or hardy or whatever behind there. This would be a great option too. And I like these because the builder could order these ahead of time and have it for the guys if you're worried about it. But of course, Mundo made our flashings for this job. He's got a great metal shop, and that makes a big difference. One thing I want to point out on this one too though, Mundo, because I've got that window right below there, I put a really big head flashing on that window.
Right, we supplied those.
That head flashing goes all the way back to the sheathing, and yeah, I forgot to mention it. His company made those for me. Sometimes I'll get them made at a local sheet metal fabricator, but Mundo's guys made them, soldered them. They've got turn back wings on there if you look on the right and left, so any water that comes in, that water is going to want to go forward and not roll off to the sides. That really makes a robust corner there. And is really going to protect both the window and the cedar trim that's around that window. We don't want water to sit on that cedar trim, which is going to encourage it to rot in the future. So putting that head flashing on makes a big difference.
Well, that water sits on that trim, it's going to migrate, and then without given direction, it's going to go where it wants.
Yep.
And it's usually going to be inside.
That's right.
If we give it no choice, but okay, when you hit this spot, you got to come out, and that's what we want to do. We want to direct it.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that I missed on the shingles on this job that you want to mention in terms of durability, or if it was a different roof configuration, you'd want to do this or that?
Not really. I mean, the basics are going to be the same.
Yeah.
They're going to be the same. You, like you said, you had that small valley. One thing that we do, and we like to do in all our valleys, is there's a roll valley flashing. It's only 20 inches wide, but we run it on top of our underlayment, continuous, comes 50-foot roll, so it's continuous, and then we weave or lap our shingles over that.
Really
Some
smart.
people don't want to use it, they just go with the ice and water shield, but we experienced this project up in Salado where they had that big hail, and it literally, I mean, the hail was gigantic in this past storm, and it punched through 2 layers of shingles in the valley and through the ice and water shield underlayment.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it was leaking. If those people had chosen to use that valley metal and the ice and water, it would have hit that metal and stopped. They still would have had the holes in the shingles, but it wouldn't have got into the building.
Right.
And they ended up replacing them anyway for insurance. So it would have saved, because we were out there patching numerous holes prior to it because it just punched clean through it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that extra forgiveness makes a big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really smart.
Yeah.
Big thanks to our friends at Atlas for sponsoring today's video. They make a terrific product. By the way, they're really highly rated on Consumer Reports. They actually do hail tests on things where they drop a steel ball onto shingles, and they look at different manufacturers' rated shingles, and Atlas is always top of the game. So I really like these guys. They make a great product. And we use their insulation, separate division, same company, on this wall right behind me. They got some terrific products and some really good people. So I'll put a link to those guys in the description, but definitely think about their impact rated shingles if you're in a hail zone like I am here. And there's actually one grade of shingle higher, believe it or not, than what we used as well. It is the Storm Master Shake that actually goes up to a 20-year warranty. We did the 15. Again, we're really interested in getting the best we could, but also being thoughtful about cost. So we did go one down from the very highest rated they have. But I'm really happy the way it turned out. A beautiful house.
Well, and I can just add, I think also the help what you've done with the shingle roof is the ventilation.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
That's the heat is the enemy of shingle roofs in our part of the world.
That's right.
It's once that asphalt's gone, the waterproofing's gone, and so by keeping that ventilated and those shingles cool, that's going to prolong their life. So you got that and the impact resistance, and yeah, this roof should last a very long time.
Yeah, we're gonna last a long time. That's the vented over roof that you were mentioning. I've got an 1.5 inch airspace that from this soffit right here all the way up to the ridge, I've got the 1.5 inch gap, and the bottom side of that sheathing is exposed to ambient air temp. And when the heat hits that, it's gonna wanna move air through there. with the stack effect. So we should get some pretty good motion through that ridge vent.
I believe so.
Out through the top as well.
I believe so.
Man, you're a gem. Really appreciate it, Mundo.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for all of your amazing partnership over the last 2 decades.
Well, it goes both ways.
I'm excited about the next 20 years that we get to work together as well.
Yeah, you can count on that.
Big thanks to Atlas for sponsoring, and of course our friends at Builders First Source. Amazing companies, really thankful for their partnership on this job. If you are interested in building this house, by the way, the plans are available for this house at bldrplans.com. And if you're building in Austin, Kidd Roofing is a big company. They got a lot of crews and a lot of good people besides Mundo on staff that could accommodate you. And you guys do both new construction and replacement jobs too, right?
Exactly.
Asphalt shingles, metal, tile. They've done slate for me. We've done a little bit of everything with you guys over the years.
We have a good sized commercial division too.
That's right, you got a huge commercial division.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of flat roofs together, so this is a great company. And you're a gem, Mundo. So that being said, guys, big thanks to joining us here at the Reisinger Build. Stay tuned for our next episode, and we'll see you next time on the Reisinger Build.